There is an excitement in the air. Along with the sounds of laughing children and conversation, the smell of jasmine rice and adobo helps create a festive mood. Rows of carefully prepared Filipino dishes fills up tabletops as a crowd gathers around to watch the main spectacle of the day, the cutting of the lechon. Like clockwork, everyone clamors to get a piece of crispy pork skin before it's gone. From the youngest to the oldest, it's the main attraction of the meal. This same scene has replayed here once a year for the last 45 years. Although, seems like we've crashed a family picnic somewhere in the Philippines, you might be surprised to know that this isn't the Philippines. This is St. Louis. As a chef, I need to stay curious in order to evolve. For me, that means looking beyond a great meal to learn more about who made it and what inspires them to cook. Every great city has great food. I'm going on a journey around the world right here in St. Louis to find good food and experience other cultures. I'm on a quest to find passionate chefs who cooks from the heart. Because food is love.
It's gonna be delicious.
Food is love. Love your food.
Serving art daily. Restaurant pie.
A stroll down Delmar Avenue finds me in the hip, often eclectic neighborhood affectionately known as The Loop. The Loop has become home to a host of shops, restaurants, and venues that attract locals and tourists. Want to catch a concert? You can do that here. Bowling? They have that too. The Loop also doubles as the St. Louis Walk of Fame, boasting the names of St. Louis greats like Chuck Berry, Nelly, and horror king Vincent Price.
Well, who knew that he was a chef too? Lou Brock came to my restaurants a couple of years ago, and there was people standing in line outside the restaurant just to meet him. He signed a baseball for me. It was very nice.
One of my favorite stops on the Loop is vintage vinyl.
Oh, look at this. Yes.
Parrot head or not, the real reason I'm checking out the Loop today is the food.
How you doing? Guerrilla Street Food, have you tried that?
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm meeting my friend Brian, one of the owners of the Filipino fast casual restaurant known as Guerrilla Street Food.
Brian, how are you?
Hey.
Brian and his business partner Joel has been serving St. Louis Filipino-inspired food for the last 9 years. Their location in the Loop is a testament to the diverse food culture of the city. Brian, however, is not Filipino and has a background in fine dining. So how did he end up making this food?
Yeah. You were a chef before you came, or you started this concept?
Yes.
Fine dining?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happened? I mean, did you hit your head, or?
I was talking with my best friend Joel, who's now my business partner, and
okay,
you know, we've always kind of had a dream of having our own restaurant, having our own business, and
this is a major leap of faith for you to leave the job you had and then try this on your own.
Was pretty confident in my skills, but it was just going from a kind of a more fine dining restaurant into the food truck scene, and then fast casual restaurant doing Filipino food, which nobody was doing at the time in St. Louis. So it was scary, but
yeah,
it had to happen. Otherwise, I would have been just kicking myself like, oh, I didn't even try, you know?
So you started with a food truck first?
Yes, it started as a food truck 9 years ago. The food truck was a way to kind of break into that business without having a lot of money to get started. You get to build a fan base, you get to introduce to people what you plan to do.
Okay.
And it's, you know, it's a pretty good business model, and then it led us to this point.
Joel is a Filipino.
Yes.
So he introduced you to the food, or how did that come about?
So really, he would bring me food from parties, from picnics. You know, the food is of course delicious. So
yeah,
you know, I wanted to recreate that.
Filipino cuisine, is that eaten with chopsticks, or do you just use?
So never chopsticks.
Never chopsticks. Huh?
The fork and the spoon is really where you're what you get, or your hands, which is the way more fun way to eat.
Okay.
Filipino food.
Wow.
You know, at this point, this is super piping hot, so I wouldn't recommend that.
No.
But I would say that the main ingredients in Philippine cooking are vinegar,
okay,
soy sauce, garlic, then black pepper, and bay leaves. And those ingredients are the main ingredients for some of the most popular adobo recipes in the Philippines, which is kind of the unofficial dish of the country. My instinct before I learned Filipino cooking was to use vinegar almost like as a seasoning, or you really had to like get it balanced with, sugar and salt, which is still the case here, but the vinegar is definitely more pronounced. There's a lot of more acid playing in these dishes.
It's simple, but you get to taste the pork, what pork is supposed to taste like.
Absolutely, and that's key. When we do our flying pig, we do so little to it. People are like, well, that's it? And we're like, well, because we want you to taste the pork as it comes.
Even with a strong menu full of nods to Filipino comfort favorites like fried spam and banana ketchup, or the highly celebrated lumpia, a sort of spring roll that can be prepared fried or eaten cold, the pig is still king here at Guerrilla Street Food.
So the flying pig.
So that's easily our most popular dish at Guerrilla Street Food. It also happens to be one of the first dishes on our menu, and it also happens to be really kind of influenced by the Philippines. It's not a traditional dish. We just like that combination of flavors. So start off with probably the most popular ingredient in the Philippines, rice.
Okay.
Every Filipino likes extra rice, please.
Is it a unique type of rice? Or?
It's jasmine rice.
Jasmine rice, okay.
And next we take our pulled pork. We braise this pork for 12 hours overnight, basically every night. And so it's like, super falling apart tender.
Wow.
And then all we do to it is we rub it in tamari, which is like a gluten-free soy sauce, basically. And then we just let time take care of it.
What are we doing over here with the eggs?
One of the main ingredients of the flying pig is the slow-cooked egg. We cook it in immersion circulator in a hot water bath at 144.5 degrees for 1 hour.
Okay.
So we call it the 1 hour egg. And then when it comes out, it's a perfectly cooked, like medium poached egg, basically, except creamier and just more luscious. It's pretty great. So we have our calamansi, which is a Filipino lime. We make this simple syrup out of honey, lime juice. We drizzle a little hoisin over it, which is a sweet potato-based sauce, sriracha, a fried garlic, black sesame seeds, green onions.
Wow, that looks delicious. All right, so we are having a Filipino drink.
Yes, so we call this calamansi cooler.
Okay.
We have calamansi on the flying pig. This is just made into a drink. So it's lime juice, sugar, and water, essentially. So think of it like you would think of lemonade. We've done probably 6 different versions of fried lumpia. Some are all vegetarian, some have ground pork, some have, shrimp in them, just whatever, but this has been our favorite. This has been the most popular. So I just coated our Spam fries in ground ginger.
Okay.
Just to have another layer of flavor there.
I mean, you didn't have to persuade me. I love Spam, so.
It's just one of those flavors that in the Philippines, is very nostalgic and it's comfort food.
Yeah.
So the last thing I put on here is our homemade achara, which is a sweet pickled green papaya. So green papaya is like an unripened papaya, and so we shred it like this, mix it with onion, bell pepper, carrot, jalapeno, and then this like sweet pickling liquid, let it sit for a couple of days, and then kind of utilize it almost like a condiment or like a side dish, like a slaw. I learned early on that it was most important to respect the ingredients and learn about the traditional dish. And then if we wanted to or needed to, we could do our own versions, but if we didn't need to, then we're not gonna mess with a good thing. The street food that we were serving was all meant to buy off our food truck and then just go have lunch walking back to work. So that's why there's a lot of finger foods. So this is a pancit. Normally this is served with a piece of fresh calamansi to squeeze over it, some citrus.
Okay.
And since it's so hard for us in St. Louis to get that, we just substitute lemon. Rice noodles, and lots of veggies, vinegar, soy.
It's delicious. It's absolutely delicious.
All it takes is that one kind of leap of faith on some of these things, what might be unfamiliar to people, and then suddenly they're going to buy anything that we have on our menu because they trust us that it's going to be delicious.
That's what this is all about, is trying stuff, trying food, trying new cuisines, explore cultures that you normally wouldn't. And the food is the hook.
Right.
It opens up people's mind, to new things, new adventures. Oh yeah, it looks delicious. Well, that's how I like my egg anyway.
Since we started about 9 years ago, we've sold right around 300,000 of that dish right there.
How did you come up with a name?
As a food truck, we would come in, we would park, sell food, and then we would drive away. I mean, that's what guerrilla warfare is.
Yeah.
You know, going up against a lot of large chains, when we're this very small company trying to offer as much value as they have.
The underdog, maybe?
Yes, exactly. It just was sounding cool, honestly, and it fit what we were trying to do, and you know, kind of represented us as like this kind of like punk rock, like DIY company.
Do you have a Filipino population that comes down in here?
We do.
And what's their feedback?
So there's a pretty large Filipino population spread out across the area, and we do get a good amount of Filipino support within our company, and you know, they absolutely love it. It's pretty nice to have Filipinos walk down the street and see their flag outside of our business, and you know, see that obvious pride that somebody's trying to represent that cuisine and that culture, and that's what we try to do every day.
Joel, Brian's business partner and the other half of Guerrilla Street Food, is Filipino. He has invited me to a picnic that takes place once a year at a local park. This picnic isn't a family reunion, but rather a gathering of members of the Filipino community who moved here in the 60s. This is my chance to try a variety of traditional Filipino dishes. It's no surprise that the center of all the food here is, again, the pig.
There's a lot of enthusiasm around the food today, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a special thing. So people try to pull out all the stops. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best part. So as soon as the pig, the first thing that people want is the crispy skin. They call it meat candy.
Okay.
And it's all in the technique of cooking it.
Thank you very much.
I want some too. Don't forget me. With the Lechon this size, you're probably looking at only about maybe 5 or 6 hours over the fire, and then you're done. And that's the only way that you can achieve the crispy skin. When you go to different regions of the Philippines, there's different little nuances. I grew up eating lechon with a liver sauce, which if you go to like Cebu, they just eat it with a spicy vinegar.
Okay.
Vinegar is a very popular, cooking ingredient as well as a condiment on everything. We just put vinegar on everything. Or squeeze a little calamansi, which is like a Filipino lime on top of it. And you gotta have some adobo. You had the chicken adobo at our restaurant.
Yep, it was delicious.
Yeah, this is a pork adobo.
Okay. The fish balls is another.
I mean, you'll see a lot of Chinese influence. There's a lot of Chinese immigrants in the Philippines. I remember growing up and eating so many Chinese things, thinking that they were Filipino foods, but it was really, it's just very popular. There's a lot of Chinese restaurants in China. One of my favorite best friends in the Philippines is a Filipino chef, but he's actually Chinese Filipino or Filipino.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of that. Like you can't have a St. Louis gathering out without mastachole. Completely not. It's more of that's a St. Louis thing. Oh, is this the Liguan? Oh, so this is the blood stew.
Okay. We better get another plate, I think.
This is usually bits pork. So, but then there's also will be included tripe and there's probably shoulder. I mean, it's all bits, all different kinds of cuts of pork.
The pig's ear, they cut it up into slices, and that's when you go to bite it and you feel a little crunch. It's usually the cartilage from the pig's ear.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds delicious.
So this is a sweet rice cake that you eat with the blood stew to kind of like cut it, kind of complement it. Of course, you have to get rice to eat with everything.
So who did all the cooking?
I mean, everyone, right? Yeah. Everyone. It's like potluck style. So what do you think of the pork blood?
I love it.
It's really good, right?
Yeah.
They call it chocolate meat or chocolate soup, yeah.
What's in here, spice-wise?
Well, there's usually Filipinos always cook with garlic. There's always a lot of garlic and everything, and a lot of vinegar. Mm-hmm. So garlic and vinegar, blood, soy sauce, and those are the kind of like the typical ingredients that go into a lot of dishes. Just different, it's all just in technique and proportioning, and it's all about contrasts of flavor. Okay. So when you eat like this really like savory, meaty, like irony blood stew, you want to have this like sweet rice cake to kind of counter it. or if you're eating something fatty, you want to have like a acidic, vinegary sauce to kind of cut through the fattiness.
That sweet rice is just perfect with this. You're right. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, there's so many things where people would eat it if they didn't know what it was, but it's once you get told what it is, you hesitate.
Right.
I mean, unless you're...
Well, and that's why the Filipinos come up with things like chocolate meat and chocolate soup. My parents used to serve us growing up. They would make this Filipino dish with tongue, and they used to call it steak, cube steak, or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just cut into cubes, and they'd be like, "That's cube steak."
But it does look like chocolate.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Chocolate soup. You know, this skin is delicious.
Yeah.
Crispy.
Yeah, and that's the first thing. Everyone, when they hover around the pig before it's, the first thing they do is cut a little piece of skin off, and then they give it to the guest of honor or whoever the senior person is. Yeah, the crispy skin is what is unique about the Filipino version of a spit roasted pig, or even the Filipino version of a lechon.
Wow.
And it's coveted. I mean, it's the first thing to go before the meat. And then there's the people who know to go for the ear, they go for the cheek. They're waiting for that. Huh. But people just are happy to get a piece of skin that's crispy.
So, the Philippines, why did they arrive in St. Louis or United States? What's the story behind that?
There was a period of time in the United States where there were a lot of doctors coming in from other countries like the Philippines and India and stuff, when our doctors were being sent out to go out into other countries. And so a lot of their friends were here in St. Louis. So when they're going to a country there, they don't know anyone, have never lived before. They wanted to be where they knew people, at least have a community that they could kind of eat up. And this picnic has been going on for 45 years or so.
In the beginning, it served as a way for immigrant Filipinos to stay in touch with others who also relocated here. This picnic gave them a way to share food and stay in touch with their culture.
These are the friends, and some of them they didn't even know when they were in the Philippines. They just knew that there were, and it's a network formed of Filipinos in different parts of the country where they knew that they would be able to find other Filipinos. And if you went around and kind of took a poll, most of these older folks that came from the Philippines are all doctors, nurses, or married to doctors or nurses, all Filipino. And so that was kind of the joke growing up in St. Louis, was if you met another Filipino, you'd be like, so which one of your parents is a doctor or a nurse? And so that was a really big thing, at least in St. Louis. That was how the Filipino culture was here.
You know, one of the things I find so interesting is you come from another culture and you move to the United States, but you have this feeling that you have to find people of your own culture to share food with.
Absolutely.
And it's just like what you're saying now with people here. You know, they wanted to find other Filipinos in St. Louis.
Right.
I'm yet to find a Danish person here yet. I haven't found anybody yet, but I'm on the lookout. Just in St. Louis, all the different cultures you can touch upon just by eating in different restaurants, and all the travel expenses you don't have. All you have to do is drive around St. Louis, and that's what's so refreshing about your restaurant. You come in there and all the things on the menu, you have never had that before, so you start a little journey just in your restaurant.
That's something I think we've benefited from, like this kind of, we're almost living in like a renaissance of food these days, because people are exposed to a lot more different kinds of cultures through social media and food shows. I think it's an exciting time for Filipino food, because people, growing up when I was little, I used to be kind of a little bit ashamed of the food because it looks weird, it sounds weird. And now the fact that, a large part, half if not more of our clientele are non-Filipinos, that blows a lot of people's minds, because that was 10, 15 years ago, that was never a thing.
But I think you're right about the Renaissance, because people were 10, 15 years ago, they weren't open to all the things they're open to now.
Like it's that you're able to introduce people, a more mainstream audience to these different things that are right here in your own backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily go to the other side of the world. Like you said, buy a plane ticket. You can actually discover a lot and then be introduced to a lot right here. One of the most iconic Filipino desserts, or also a summer treat, is called halo halo.
Okay.
And it's a shaved ice treat, dessert, drink. I don't know. It's kind of a hybrid of everything. And it's shaved ice, and you put all these different toppings on it. Sometimes there'll be sweetened beans on it. Sometimes there'll be like jellies and sweet, all these little sweet little things, toppings, and you put them all together. And you have this nice, almost like layered looking, almost like a parfait.
Okay.
And halo halo, literally translated, means mix.
Okay.
So once you get all these together, and there's also usually sweetened condensed milk, maybe some evaporated milk in there, sometimes fresh milk. When I was in the Philippines, I had water buffalo milk in it.
What's in here? Joel?
So it looks like you have sweetened chickpeas in there.
Okay.
I have green corn, mung beans, palm nut.
Palm nut fruit, right?
Palm nut fruit. I have white beans. I have chickpeas. I have nata de coco.
So
it's delicious.
If you go to a Filipino store or go to the Filipino aisle at the Asian grocery store, you'll see a whole wall of halo halo ingredients.
Halo. For dessert, right?
Right?
That was a lot to eat.
Yeah, you'll never go hungry in a Filipino gathering or a Filipino home. There's always something to eat. And even if you're not there at dinner time, there's always something on the stove or something to heat up. I'll heat you up some adobo. We have some adobo from last night. We'll heat it up for you.
One thing I don't think you saw puts it on the spit.
I mean, it sounds like you were saying. It sounds cliche, but it is. The whole food is love thing is. That's what they're saying, and to me, that's another way of saying I care about you. Is have you eaten yet?
Yeah.
Would you like to eat something? It's the most basic form of hospitality.
The food is comforting and of course delicious, the hospitality overwhelming. The thought of all these people coming together once a year to visit with each other and connect with the food of their homeland is heartwarming. The families who started this tradition more than 40 years ago are getting older now. Sadly, the announcement has been made that this year will be the last year of the picnic tradition.
45 years. Yes. Yeah.
Joel has been coming to these since he was a kid. I can only imagine that he must feel a little nostalgic today as we finished up our halo halo. But, cue the positive music, all is not lost. On the other side of town, on Del Mar Avenue, past the record store and across from the concert hall, the legacy of these gatherings continues in the form of a restaurant. Brian and Joel have popularized food that has introduced St. Louis to one facet of the incredibly rich and diverse world of the Philippines. In fact, they have created a following for it.
I've been coming down to the Loop ever since I was a kid. I've witnessed kind of the evolution of the Del Mar Loop. It's got some super unique businesses up and down it that you won't find really that arrangement of businesses anywhere else in St. Louis. It's got a lot of features that just kind of draw people here. Businesses like the Tivoli and Vintage Vinyl and Blueberry Hill that'll probably always be here. If it wasn't for those things and the way that the street is set up, I'm not sure we would have as much success as we've had.
This is very unique.
Thank you.
What you're doing, very unique and eclectic.
Right.
So I guess you fit right in.
Yeah.
A lot of people come in here asking for Jimmy Buffett, or am I the only one?
Every now and again.
Yeah?
Every now and again.
Well, that's good for me. Margaritas go really well together with Filipino cuisine. Did you know that?
In a way, the families of Philippine immigrants who carried on the tradition of an annual picnic can find comfort in knowing that their food culture in St. Louis has gone beyond the picnic in the park and has become the standard for an entire city. Instead of waiting all year to meet and taste the food they love, Filipinos can get it whenever they please. And instead of remaining exotic or mysterious to those who have never tried it, the food is becoming a staple of the culture in areas like the Loop, exposing both tourists and locals to Philippine food in a delicious, inviting way. It's a beautiful ending to the story. This challenges me to find a way of fusing the flavors of my own menu with some of the stuff I learned from Joel and Brian to come up with something totally new.
This is a play on the Filipino dishes that were shown to me. Coconut risotto, crisp fried pork belly and shrimp adobo, Filipino style with banana ketchup, rice noodles, pickled papaya. Food is love, and I definitely love Filipino food. Pick it up, please.